For more than 3,000 years, the monuments of ancient Egypt have inspired wonder with their colossal scale, extraordinary engineering, and remarkable beauty. Today, most survive as weathered ruins of bare stone, but in their prime, they were dazzling masterpieces of polished limestone, brilliant colors, towering statues, and shining gold that reflected the wealth of one of history's greatest civilizations. From monumental temples and colossal sculptures to vast pyramids and hidden underground chambers, we'll explore how some of ancient Egypt's greatest megastructures actually looked at the height of their glory. For more than 3,000 years, the colossal temples of Abu Simbel have watched over the Nile from the edge of the Nubian desert. Today they appear as weathered sandstone monuments carved into the cliffs, but what most visitors see is only a faded shadow of their original appearance. When it was originally constructed more than 3,000 years ago in the 13th century BC, every surface was alive with brilliant color, polished stone, and shimmering gold. The four colossal seated statues of Ramses, standing over 65 feet high, did not originally display bare sandstone. Their faces, crowns, clothing, and thrones were covered in vibrant mineral pigments that transformed the mountain into an enormous work of art. It was here on the western bank of the Nile in southern Egypt where an entire mountainside was transformed into one of the greatest monuments ever created by human hands. Abu Simbel was not built from stacked stone blocks like the pyramids. Instead, the temples were carved directly into a solid sandstone cliff, turning the living rock itself into a masterpiece of engineering. Even today, many visitors struggle to comprehend how ancient builders achieved such astonishing precision on such a massive scale. Stepping inside reveals an equally astonishing world. The temple stretches more than 200 feet into the mountain through a series of enormous halls lined with towering Osiride pillars. Every wall is covered with remarkably preserved carvings. Originally, these carvings were not the bare sandstone color seen today. They were covered in brilliant pigments of deep red, rich blue, vibrant yellow, emerald green, and pure white, making the temple feel less like ancient ruins and more like the interior of an enormous sacred palace. 8 colossal statues of Ramses II, carved as the god Osiris, stand over 30 feet tall, lining the main hall and creating an awe-inspiring procession. Their perfectly symmetrical arrangement and extraordinary craftsmanship demonstrate the remarkable precision achieved by the ancient Egyptians more than 3,000 years ago. One of Abu Simbel's greatest mysteries lies in its extraordinary astronomical alignment. Twice every year, around the 22nd of February and the 22nd of October, the rising sun penetrates deep into the mountain, traveling more than 200 feet through the temple until it illuminates statues in the innermost sanctuary. For only a few minutes, the faces of Ramses II, Amun-Ra, and Ra-Horakhti glow in golden sunlight, while the statue of Ptah, the god associated with the underworld, remains deliberately hidden in darkness. Perhaps even more extraordinary is the fact that Abu Simbel almost disappeared forever beneath the waters of the Nile. During the construction of the Aswan High Dam in the 1960s, the rising waters of the newly formed Lake Nasser threatened to submerge the temples permanently. In one of the greatest archaeological rescue missions ever attempted, engineers carefully cut the entire complex into more than 1,000 massive blocks, some weighing over 30 tons, before relocating and reassembling the temples on higher ground about 200 feet away. The operation preserved the monument while maintaining its remarkable solar alignment with astonishing accuracy. For more than 2,000 years, generation after generation of Egyptian pharaohs expanded what would become the largest religious complex ever built in the ancient world. Covering more than 200 acres along the east bank of the Nile at Thebes, modern-day Luxor, Karnak was far more than a single temple. It was a vast sacred city of towering pylons, colossal obelisks, enormous courts, hidden sanctuaries, sacred lakes, and endless avenues of statues, all dedicated primarily to Amun-Ra, the king of the Egyptian gods. Even after thousands of years of erosion and destruction, Karnak remains one of humanity's most astonishing architectural achievements. Approaching Karnak in its prime, would have been an unforgettable experience. A magnificent avenue of hundreds of ram-headed sphinxes stretched toward the monumental entrance, guiding pilgrims into a world designed to overwhelm the senses. Massive gateway pylons, once painted in brilliant reds, blues, yellows, and gold, rose above the crowds like artificial mountains, while enormous ceremonial flags fluttered from towering wooden poles. Contrary to the weathered sandstone seen today, nearly every wall, column, and statue at Karnak was vividly painted, transforming the temple into a dazzling display of color beneath Egypt's brilliant sun. At the heart of the complex stands the legendary Great Hypostyle Hall, one of the greatest architectural spaces ever created before the modern era. Covering more than 50,000 square feet, the hall contains 134 colossal columns arranged in perfect rows, with the tallest rising nearly 70 feet into the air. Their capitals resemble blooming papyrus plants, symbolizing the marshes from which Egyptian creation mythology believed life first emerged. Every inch of these immense columns was covered with colorful hieroglyphs and carved reliefs recording victories, religious rituals, royal ceremonies, and offerings to the gods, creating what must have felt like an enormous stone forest. Karnak was also home to some of the tallest obelisks ever erected in ancient Egypt. These single pieces of granite, transported hundreds of miles from Aswan, were carved with astonishing precision and raised vertically without modern machinery. The most famous, commissioned by Queen Hatshepsut, still stands nearly 100 feet tall and weighs more than 300 tons. Covered with finely carved inscriptions celebrating her reign, its polished granite surface would have reflected sunlight so brilliantly that it could be seen from miles away. One of Karnak's most fascinating features was its remarkable alignment with the heavens. The main axis of the temple was carefully positioned to correspond with the rising sun during the winter solstice, allowing sunlight to illuminate sacred areas at specific times of the year. The entire complex was designed according to precise religious and astronomical principles, reflecting the Egyptians' belief that their temples represented the very structure of the universe. Every expansion carefully preserved this sacred geometry, despite centuries of continuous construction. Although much smaller than nearby Karnak Temple, the Temple of Luxor shares the same magnificent architectural style and was connected to Karnak by the famous Avenue of Sphinxes. Like Karnak, Luxor Temple originally dazzled visitors with towering gateway pylons, colossal statues, soaring columns, polished stone floors, and walls completely covered in colorful hieroglyphs and carved reliefs. Visitors entered through an imposing gateway guarded by colossal 50-foot statues of Ramses II, alongside two towering pink granite obelisks. Originally, both obelisks stood side by side before the first pylon, their polished surfaces reflecting the Egyptian sun. Today, only one remains in Luxor, while its twin was transported to Paris in the 19th century and now stands in the Place de la Concorde. Inside the temple, visitors entered a breathtaking series of colossal courtyards, towering colonnades and sacred chambers leading toward the sanctuary. One of the most spectacular features is the Great Colonnade of Amenhotep III, consisting of 14 massive papyrus-shaped columns rising more than 50 feet into the air. Their capitals resemble blooming papyrus flowers, symbolizing creation and renewal, while every surface is covered with beautifully carved reliefs depicting festivals, religious ceremonies, and offerings to the gods. When newly completed, the entire interior glowed with vibrant colors. Polished stone floors reflected sunlight streaming through the entrances, and the air was filled with incense, music, and chanting priests. Rising from the Giza Plateau on the edge of the Sahara Desert, the Great Sphinx is one of the most recognizable monuments on Earth and one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Carved directly from a single outcrop of limestone, the monument measures about 240 feet in length and more than 60 feet in height. According to the mainstream archaeological view, it was created during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra around 2500 BC. Yet an alternative theory suggests the Sphinx may be thousands of years older, dating back to the end of the last ice age, making it not only Egypt's oldest monument, but the last surviving relic of a forgotten prehistoric civilization. In this alternative interpretation, the Sphinx was already ancient, long before dynastic Egypt emerged, before hieroglyphs, and before the first pharaohs ruled the Nile Valley. Perhaps the most intriguing part of this theory concerns the Sphinx's original appearance. Several researchers have suggested that the monument originally did not have a human head at all, but instead bore the head of a jackal resembling the god Anubis, serving as a sacred guardian long before Egyptian religion took shape. Others argue it originally depicted a lion, symbolically linked to the constellation Leo during approximately 10,500 BC through the precession of the equinoxes. While these interpretations differ, both propose that the present human face was carved much later after the original head had been damaged by thousands of years of weathering. One of the strongest arguments often presented in favor of this theory is the monument's unusual proportions. The current head appears remarkably small compared to the enormous lion body, much smaller than those of other known Egyptian sphinxes. Advocates of the recarving hypothesis argue that a larger jackal or lion head would have matched the body's proportions far more naturally and required substantially more stone than the existing head. In this interpretation, later Egyptian craftsmen reshaped only the damaged upper portion into the likeness of a pharaoh, while leaving the original body largely untouched. Geology has also played a major role in the debate. Some geologists have argued that the enclosure surrounding the Sphinx displays deep vertical weathering patterns more consistent with prolonged rainfall than with wind-driven desert sand. Such heavy rainfall occurred in Egypt during the African humid period, thousands of years before the traditionally accepted construction date. Supporters believe this suggests the monument stood exposed long before the Old Kingdom, surviving the dramatic climatic changes that ended the Ice Age. Most Egyptologists, however, interpret the erosion differently and maintain that the evidence supports a 4th dynasty origin. Whatever its true age, there is little doubt that the Sphinx looked dramatically different in antiquity. Standing beside the Great Sphinx were the pyramids in their original splendor, transformed into dazzling monuments unlike anything visible today. Instead of rough, weathered stone, they were covered with millions of precisely fitted white Tura limestone casing blocks, polished to such a smooth finish that they reflected the sunlight and shone brilliantly across the desert for miles. Their pyramidions, or capstones, may have been covered in electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, creating a radiant beacon at sunrise and sunset. Together with the brightly painted Sphinx, colorful valley temples, ceremonial causeways and statues, the Giza Plateau was not a landscape of ancient ruins, but a magnificent ceremonial complex displaying the extraordinary engineering, artistry, and power of ancient Egypt. Nestled beneath the towering limestone cliffs of Deir el-Bahri on the west bank of the Nile, the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut is one of the most extraordinary architectural achievements of ancient Egypt. Built during the 15th century BC for Pharaoh Hatshepsut, one of the few women to rule Egypt as king, the temple broke away from the traditional design of earlier monuments. Instead of towering pylons and enclosed courtyards, it was constructed as a series of elegant terraces rising directly from the desert floor, blending so perfectly with the surrounding cliffs that the landscape itself became part of the architecture. Even today, its striking appearance makes it one of the most recognizable temples in Egypt. The temple was designed by Hatshepsut's trusted architect Senenmut, whose innovative vision created a monument unlike any other in the ancient world. 3 enormous terraces connected by wide central ramps ascend toward the sanctuary, while long rows of graceful square columns create a sense of remarkable symmetry. Originally, the bright limestone walls gleamed in the sunlight, and every surface was decorated with brilliantly painted reliefs in vivid reds, blues, greens, yellows, and gold. The temple stood in dramatic contrast to the dark cliffs behind it, creating an unforgettable sight for anyone approaching from the Nile. During the winter solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the temple's central axis, sending its rays deep into the sanctuary to illuminate the sacred statues of Amun-Ra and Hatshepsut. This remarkable astronomical design symbolized Hatshepsut's claim that she was the divine daughter of Amun-Ra, and that her right to rule came directly from the gods. Among the temple's most fascinating features are the beautifully preserved reliefs that record some of the greatest achievements of Hatshepsut's reign. One of the most famous depicts her legendary expedition to the mysterious land of Punt, showing Egyptian ships returning with exotic animals, rare trees, incense, ivory, gold, and luxury goods. These scenes provide one of the most detailed visual records of long-distance trade from the ancient world and demonstrate the wealth and influence Egypt possessed during Hatshepsut's rule. Archaeological evidence suggests the forecourt of the Temple of Hatshepsut contained ornamental gardens with pools, flowering plants, and imported frankincense and myrrh trees brought back from Punt, making it one of the earliest documented botanical gardens. Colossal statues of Hatshepsut once lined the terraces, portraying her in the traditional form of a male pharaoh, complete with the royal false beard, emphasizing that she ruled with the full authority of an Egyptian king. Sacred chapels dedicated to Amun, Hathor, and Anubis were built into the complex, making it both a royal monument and an important religious sanctuary. Although later rulers attempted to erase Hatshepsut's memory by destroying many of her statues and removing her name from inscriptions, the temple itself survived as one of Egypt's greatest masterpieces. Today, its elegant terraces, towering colonnades, and dramatic setting remain a testament to the ambition of one of history's most remarkable pharaohs. Located about 20 miles south of modern Cairo, the Saqqara necropolis is one of the oldest and most important archaeological sites in Egypt. Serving as the principal burial ground for the ancient capital of Memphis for more than 3,000 years, Saqqara contains an extraordinary collection of pyramids, royal tombs, underground chambers, temples, and monuments spanning nearly the entire history of ancient Egyptian civilization. While Giza is famous for its colossal pyramids, Saqqara preserves the earliest stages of pyramid construction and reveals how Egyptian architecture evolved into some of the greatest monuments ever built. At the heart of the necropolis stands the Step Pyramid of Djoser. Built during the 27th century BC for Pharaoh Djoser, it was designed by the legendary architect Imhotep, who transformed traditional mud-brick mastaba tombs into a revolutionary six-tiered pyramid rising more than 200 feet above the desert. Hidden beneath the Step Pyramid lies an immense underground labyrinth unlike anything else in Egypt. More than 3 miles of tunnels branch through the bedrock, leading to hundreds of chambers, storage rooms, and passageways extending nearly 100 feet below the surface. At the center lies Djoser's granite burial chamber, while surrounding galleries once contained thousands of stone vessels carved from alabaster, diorite, granite, schist, and other precious stones. Many of these vessels were already centuries old when they were buried, suggesting they were treasured royal heirlooms preserved for eternity. The walls of Djoser's underground chambers were once decorated with more than 30,000 blue-green faience tiles, carefully crafted to imitate woven reed mats used in royal palaces. Their brilliant turquoise color symbolized rebirth, life, and the fertile waters of the Nile, transforming the underground corridors into a dazzling ceremonial palace for the pharaoh's eternal afterlife. Even after more than 4,600 years, many of these extraordinary tiles still survive, making them among the oldest and finest examples of decorative glazed ceramics ever created. One of Saqqara's most mysterious monuments is the Serapeum, an enormous underground complex hidden beneath the desert. Inside lay long galleries containing gigantic granite sarcophagi carved from single blocks of stone. Many weigh more than 70 tons, while some estimates place the heaviest at close to 100 tons. The interiors were polished with astonishing precision, and the lids alone weigh many tons. Transporting these enormous stone coffins into narrow underground passages and positioning them with such accuracy remains one of the greatest engineering mysteries. Saqqara is also home to hundreds of beautifully decorated mastaba tombs, belonging to nobles, priests, royal officials, architects, physicians, and military commanders. Their walls preserve some of the finest reliefs from the ancient world, depicting farming, fishing, hunting, music, shipbuilding, feasts, religious ceremonies, and everyday life with extraordinary realism. These scenes provide an unparalleled record of Egyptian civilization, revealing details about clothing, tools, agriculture, trade, architecture, and social customs that would otherwise have been lost forever. In many cases, traces of the original red, blue, green, yellow, and black pigments still survive, allowing us to glimpse how colorful these tombs once appeared. During the last few decades, Saqqara has become one of the most productive archaeological sites in the world. Excavations have uncovered dozens of previously unknown burial shafts, descending more than 100 feet underground, filled with hundreds of sealed coffins, beautifully painted sarcophagi, gilded funerary masks, statues, amulets, and remarkably preserved mummies. Standing on the west bank of the Nile near ancient Thebes, the Colossi of Memnon are among the largest and most iconic statues ever created in ancient Egypt. Carved from massive blocks of quartzite sandstone during the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III in the 14th century BC, each colossal seated figure stands about 60 feet high, or nearly 70 feet, including its pedestal, and weighs an estimated 720 tons. Although they appear isolated today, the statues originally guarded the entrance to the enormous mortuary temple of Amenhotep III, once the largest temple complex in Egypt before it was destroyed over the centuries by earthquakes, Nile floods, and the reuse of its stone. The statues portray Amenhotep III seated on his throne, with finely carved details of the royal regalia, while smaller figures representing members of his family are sculpted beside his legs. Even more remarkable is that the quartzite used to carve them came from quarries near modern-day Cairo, roughly 420 miles, about 675 kilometers, to the north. Transporting blocks of this size over such an enormous distance remains one of the greatest engineering achievements of ancient Egypt. Exactly how the Egyptians moved and erected monuments weighing hundreds of tons is still not fully understood. The statues became famous throughout the ancient world after an earthquake in 27 BC cracked the northern Colossus. At sunrise, the damaged stone reportedly emitted a mysterious humming sound as it warmed in the morning air, leading Greek and Roman visitors to believe the statue was the mythical hero Memnon greeting his mother, Eos, the goddess of dawn. Even after more than 3,000 years, the Colossi of Memnon remain a breathtaking reminder of the immense scale, engineering skill, and artistic ambition of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt's monuments have survived for thousands of years, but what we see today is only a fraction of their original magnificence. There are dozens of magnificent sites in Egypt we couldn't cover in this video alone. These extraordinary structures represented the pinnacle of ancient engineering, artistry, and ambition. Every new archaeological discovery continues to reveal details that bring us closer to understanding how these legendary monuments truly appeared in their prime. Yet the mystery of how some of the most magnificent constructions were built continues to puzzle us. Long before recorded history, there may have existed advanced ancient civilizations capable of building gigantic megalithic structures that would still challenge us even today. They appear to have lifted enormous stone blocks weighing thousands of tons and stacked them with almost laser-like precision, using methods we still cannot fully explain. Many of these blocks remain difficult to lift even with modern cranes, which makes their achievement seem even more extraordinary. They also shaped some of the hardest stone on Earth into mathematically precise and seemingly flawless monuments, leaving us to wonder who these builders were and how they accomplished what appears impossible. Were they truly just primitive societies? Or were they masters of a forgotten technology now lost to the sands of time? Explore the evidence pointing to an ancient, global, and technologically sophisticated civilization that may once have ruled across the planet. Its builders created gigantic sites whose ruins still stand today. Discover more in our ebook, Prehistoric Megastructures, a nearly 500-page volume filled with images and in-depth analysis of some of the most astonishing and unexplained ancient structures ever found. Inside, you will explore monuments that appear to have been built with advanced technology from a forgotten age. The e-book is currently available at a limited discount. Make sure to get your copy before the offer ends.